Instead, they're like running to me. They're like, "Hola, ¿cómo está?" I'm like, "What are you guys doing? Like, aren't you guys supposed to be running that way?" And they were running literally into the hands of Border Patrol. So in June, I go to Minnesota, and I see Christian churches being converted to mosques. I'm like, this is kind of weird. And there's this car, and I was just filming, interviewing somebody, and this guy jumps over my shoulder and rips my camera. I'm like, we just got jumped. We go to the Quality Learning Center. That place had received $1.8 million. And then just a few blocks down, another daycare had received $3.8 million. No kids anywhere to be seen. They got BMWs, Mercedes out there. I'm going to have Josh Shirley with the University of Utah. He's just going to read us off a quick script for guidance for how this event's going to go. Josh, here we go.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. The university's speech policy affirms the right of members of the university community and their organizations to invite speakers to address audiences on campus. The rights of speakers to freedom of expression under the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Utah shall be protected. The rights of audiences to hear, free from undue disruption and interference, shall also be protected. The university acknowledges that demonstrations and picketing on campus are legitimate means of expression. Anyone who wishes to engage in demonstrations and picketing shall be permitted to do so freely, as long as their conduct is not violent and does not unduly disrupt the event, interfere with the rights of other members of the university community, or damage university or private property. Specifically, demonstrating must not interfere with organized meetings or other assemblies in such a way as to invade the rights of others to assemble and the rights of speakers to free expression. If you are unwilling or unable to adhere to the policy as described, you are welcome to leave now. Be aware that those who violate the policy will be escorted from the event. Students violating this policy may also be referred to the Office of Leading Students for behavioral sanctions. Community members will be referred to the University of Utah Police Department. Staff and faculty members will be referred to human resources in the Office of Faculty, respectively. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you, Josh. All right, let's get started here. What a pleasure it is to have Nick Shirley joining us tonight. Who else knows of any 23-year-old kid that is getting governors to drop out of their gubernatorial races, right? That is the power of a camera and a kid with a mission. But to me, one of the greatest things with that is that Nick Shirley is a guy from Utah. I'm from Bountiful, born and raised. He went to high school just 10 minutes up the road from me at Farmington High. Isn't that such an honor to have a fellow colleague that's doing such great things, not only here in Utah, but across the country, fighting for conservative causes, helping Republicans win and spread the principles that we believe in. I just want to give a shout out to the Leadership Institute. They are our sponsor for today. We wouldn't be able to have this event without them, and we thank them for all the support they give us and all the good work that they do for conservative causes, for conservative principles, and advancing the agendas that we believe in and are very thankful for having. Without the Leadership Institute, we would have far less educated and trained conservatives, not only here in Utah, but across the country. So can we give them a round of applause? Next off, I just want to briefly thank our team. Without them, none of this also would have been possible. We have the greatest chapter for college Republicans in the entire country, in the entire state, right here at the University of Utah. I'm so dearly thankful for them and all that they do. I want to also give a brief shout out to all of our amazing speakers that we have here. We have candidates, we have elected officials, we have so many great audience members and elected speakers. Can we give them a round of applause too before we start? Next off, and I'll be brief, I want to close with this. We believe that America is worth fighting for. We believe that this country is the greatest nation to ever touch this earth, and we believe that we need another 250 years of us being the global hegemon because we are blessed because of that. We are the greatest nation, and without good, young, fired-up patriots like those here tonight, we would not be able to maintain that. We will not be able to live the lives that we have now. I'm so thankful that we are able to celebrate America 250 this year, and I hope for 250 more years. We have a bit of a mix-up on the schedule. We were going to start with the Utah Republican Party Chairman, Robert Axson. He isn't able to join us. He's had a flight delayed. He's stuck in Mexico. But joining us next, we're going to have our former chairman and the American Conservation Coalition State Director, Tyler Boyles, read off some remarks from Rob. Can we invite Tyler up?
All right. Well, thank you all for being here. This is awesome. And like Riley said, I'm the former chairman of the Utah Federation of College Republicans, and I had the opportunity to work alongside Robert Axson at the state party. So I'm just going to share with you some of his remarks here. Rob's an amazing guy, and I wish he could be here. He's just one of those people that can fire you up, inspire you, and he's somebody that truly I look up to. So thank you for the invitation to be with you today. I'm sorry I couldn't make it back in time to join you in person, but I'm grateful for the opportunity to share my remarks. I want you to know something clearly. What's happening in this room matters. This isn't just another event. This is where leadership is formed. This is where the future direction of our state and our country is decided. Too many people look at the problems we face and assume the solution will come from somewhere else. Someone with a title, someone with a platform, or somebody with more experience. But that's not how it works. It never has. Real change happens when individuals decide to act, right where they are with what they have. No permission, no perfect timing, just action. I've seen that principle come to life again and again. When Rob first ran for chair, become the chairman of the Utah Republican Party, it was one of his goals to continue to be and build, support, and mentor the next generation of Republicans. We had a college Republican organization which was small and sluggish, very different from what we see today. And I can attest to that. It was like 10 kids that believed in conservative values that got together and ate pizza sometimes. In Tyler Boyles, I found the partner needed. He saw the vision for what college Republicans could be, and instead of waiting, he built it. Riley Beesley, whom you just heard from, went from being politically disengaged to stepping forward to become the next leader. Kelly Hoskins didn't chase recognition. She showed up wherever she was needed and built a culture of service. And Nick Shirley used a camera and a platform to expose deception and wake people up. Different paths, different talents, same decision. Don't underestimate that. They all acted. And beyond those I've named, there are dozens and dozens of interns and volunteers, many of you sitting in this room, who've inspired me. You've already done more than you realize. You're already making an impact, and you're on a path to protect and strengthen this state. Here's the truth. Every one of you can do something that no one else can do in quite the same way. No effort is too small, no role is insignificant. A conversation, a few hours of your time, taking responsibility when it would be easier to step back, speaking up when it would be easier to stay quiet. And that's how this works. And when enough people decide to do that consistently, it creates momentum.
and momentum is unstoppable. Now, to the leaders, elected officials, and those in the room where college is in the rearview mirror, this responsibility doesn't pass us by just because we've served before. Seasons change, roles evolve, but the obligation to act never goes away. Our country still needs us, our experience, our judgment, our willingness to step forward again and again. These are moments in the life of a nation, moments where leadership is required, where courage is required, and I believe moments where even God expects something of us. No later, not when it's convenient, now. Those moments don't belong to someone else. They belong to each of us. So to every student here, step in, take ownership, be the one who acts, make something of yourself, start a family, and raise children committed to the truth. The birthright of our founders and generations before you have given you requires stewardship to protect and grow for those to whom you will pass it next. And to those who have been in this fight longer, keep going, keep building, keep showing up. Because the future we believe in will not happen on its own. It will be built, decision by decision, effort by people willing to do their part, no matter how big, no matter how small. That's how movements are built. That's how states are strengthened. That's how a nation is preserved. Thank you for what you've done. Thank you for what you're doing. And now it's time to keep going. Thank you.
All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you who don't know me, I'm actually the president of our big, beautiful chapter here at the University of Utah. I want to say one more time, thank you to all of you who are here tonight to hear from our wonderful speakers. To start off tonight, we will have Matt Macpherson. He is the current representative for the 26th District in Utah. Thank you.
Well, thanks for having me up here. I really appreciate it. It's really great to be here. I actually wanted to just start out really briefly because I think it's important to understand how I got involved in politics. In fact, my foray in politics began because I was sued by my school district for $1 million for defamation after I filed complaints against some of the district officials, how they treated my children, and for me exercising my parental rights. That went on for years before they lost, and the state of Utah was forced to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars in attorney's fees. But I bring this up because this really colored a lot of my interactions when I came into state politics. I view now, and it's something that I think a lot of you here understand very well also, is that state agencies, or government, let's just say government agencies, government employees, and government programs, when they are unchecked, they tend to become corrupt. They get power mad and they get out of control. Something that Nick Shirley showed off quite dramatically online, obviously. And this is something that I brought to my role in the legislature, which is why, for example, I made those notices of articles of impeachment against Judge Gibson, how we censured Judge Torgerson, how I sit on now the government operations and general oversight committees, and how the Speaker of the House actually assigned me to Vice Chair Public Education Appropriations, which I can tell you my school district did not enjoy. But the one thing that I want you to remember too is that I'm the only House Republican that actually represents Salt Lake City. And you would think that because of that role, that I have to play it a little more safe, and that I have to be a little bit more moderate in my positions. And I would tell you it'd be wrong. In fact, I try to do exactly what I believe is right, and then I have to fight very, very hard every year to keep my seat. And in fact, that's only been possible because of a lot of the help that I've gotten from the Utah College Republicans. They've come out, they've volunteered, they've knocked doors, and they've made phone calls for me. I very much appreciate it. I thank them very much for their organization and their leadership, and I'm going to need their help again this year for sure. Now, the one thing I will mention is that it's important that we all elect good individuals that not only represent our values, but they have to be willing to actually fight for them. They can't just be passive. They have to be aggressive. And the thing that I think has been troubling to me coming into the legislature is that even if we're willing to fight and get good people elected, and even if we're willing to get those good people to fight and get good priorities and good legislation passed, we still have to deal with a corrupt and in many ways a very left-leaning judiciary that can then strike down our conservative priorities and they can block our laws from being enacted and put in place. And that has been the norm up until today. And this year I'm happy to announce that we passed into law a bill called HB 392, the bill that I ran, that created a 3-judge panel that would prevent any one judge from blocking forever in the future any of our state laws anymore. And that no longer can a individual litigant file a case in Salt Lake City's 3rd District and expect a favorable judge to be an activist participant on their side to block conservative agenda in Utah. That can't happen anymore. I'm very, very happy about that. But the state is under attack in many ways from leftists, both nationally and locally. I think we saw that with Charlie Kirk here in Utah. But I would remind you that Utah is very resilient. And now is actually the time to be very hopeful, to be very optimistic, but also be focused. The great people of this current generation are people like Nick Shirley, like Kai Schwemmer, like all of you in this room, and the wonderful leaders of Utah College Republicans, include even my own children. I brought my daughter with me tonight. She's 20 years old. She's an active Republican, and she's now serving as a delegate for the first time. And guys, single, just so you know, single, looking for someone to work. But thank you very much for having me out here. Appreciate the lineup, and thanks for letting me speak to you today.
Up next, we have Karianne Lisonbee. She is a former State House Representative, and she's currently running, or I guess you're right, currently still is State House Representative, and is running currently for the Congressional District 2 here in Utah. And we'll give a big round of applause for Karianne Lisonbee.
So grateful to be here today. And as I was thinking about what I wanted to speak about, I thought about the green dragon. Who knows what that is? Raise your hand. Really? Oh, okay. Thank you. So the green dragon is a little tower tucked away in a little corner of Boston. And it is considered by many the birthplace of the American Revolution. And the reason I was thinking about the Green Dragon is the average age of those individuals who were meeting together, they're talking about the idea of freedom, of creating a country that didn't have a king, was 20 to 30 years old. And the college Republicans are that age. You guys inspire me. Truly, you can be hope for our nation. And sorry to get a little emotional, but truly, thank you. Thank you for being what takes some people decades to be, right? Young people generally are considered more on the left or liberal side of the spectrum, generally. They're young. They haven't learned the hard lessons of high taxes and government overreach, and you have learned it. You are there, and you're fighting for America, just like the people who met in that little tavern in Boston. So grateful. Sorry. I wanted to share a little story about one of those founders. He didn't meet at the Green Dragon, but he was a signer of the Declaration of Independence. And it brings to mind a question. How much do I value freedom? How much do you value freedom? So Abraham Clark and his wife Sarah had a lot of kids. but they had 2 sons who fought in the Revolutionary War, and they were captured by the British. And the British told Abraham if he would present his signature on the Declaration of Independence, they would let his sons go through. And Abraham would not. And one of his sons died from his treatment in an honorable prison ship in harbor. And I think about what freedom meant to Abraham, and I'm grateful to be here and to stand among people who value freedom the same way. Let's make America great again. Thank you.
All right, up next, we got arguably my favorite, but I guess a little biased because he is my personal state senator, Daniel McCay, representing District 18. Give a round of applause for Dan McCay.
Sorry, that's the first time the audience has stayed seated when I'm walking up. I appreciate it, but if I don't have a standing ovation, I don't know what to do. Because you guys might help me out, so I'll just say Dan McCay again. That feels so much better. I really appreciate it. I know how hard that was. And even one more. See, Doran knows where it's at. You know, I just for a moment, if you'll go with me back 10 years ago, my oldest daughter was in middle school, and it was my job to go pick her up. And I showed up in perfect dad uniform. My cargo shorts were down past my knees. I had if I remember right, it was a Leonard Skinner t-shirt. Raise your hand, you know who Leonard Skinner is. Okay, pretty good with you. And there was a black Leonard Skinner t-shirt, and I had my flip-flops on. And I walked up to the school to pick up my daughter, and she put her head down and said, "Dad, stand at least 10 feet away from me, please." And I didn't understand why she felt that way, because I looked pretty cool. Needless to say, she reminded me later that I could stay in the car for pickup next to me. But what I remember from that experience is I had fallen out of fashion. I had fallen out of trend. And because I'd fallen out of trend, I didn't fit in the middle school environment. And what really was interesting about that is I thought about many times things have come, gone, and come back in trend. Okay? How many of you remember when your parents, or especially your mom, had Brigham City hair? Right? I'm going to say maybe that gets a little close to home. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. Remember Brigham City hair? How about this? Who knows what parachute is? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Watch old Michael Jackson videos. You get some ideas, right? Jelly bracelets. Anybody remember jelly bracelets? Just put them on. We used to collect them, and like the really cool thing was if you could make it go the entire length to your elbow, and it was ridiculous, and you know, it didn't look great then. But I talk about that because so many things in society come in and they go out. And what's interesting is the things that don't seem to change are things that people don't notice and rarely pay enough attention to. And by that I mean principles of good government. I know you're all thinking, that's us, other government, right? And by that I just mean individual liberty, limited government, and principles of fiscal responsibility. Do you guys remember the parade for those things? No, they never happened. Why? Because they're not flashy. They don't come into style. Nobody talks about them or gets excited about them. And believe it or not, if you stand up to get elected outside of a Republican crowd, they're not even excited about it. In fact, one of the things that has become an interesting pandemic today is how frequently people are asking the government to solve the problem first than they are to ask and wait for the government to let society or a neighborhood or a community solve the problem first. See, I believe that that is the fundamental difference between one side, the blue side, or the red side today. The fundamental difference is who acts first. In my religion, God never said, give Caesar a whole bunch of money so that he can take care of your neighbor. Why didn't he? The principle is, he's trying to challenge me to care for my neighbor, because that kind of stewardship builds communities. But when government cares for your neighbor, communities suffer. And I point that out because I look at places where the government is the first actor in so many situations. And I will point out several of our large metropolitan cities. And one why they're blue? It's because the government acts first. Instead of talking to their neighbor about an issue they have, they call the police. And the police become the solution. They then show up the city councils and plan to change the rules and change the law. And then the city council becomes the decision maker. Even worse, then they go to the state and they try and compel speech. They try and audit what you're saying, and they review your social media posts. They try and cancel you. They try and excuse you from society or ostracize you from one way or another. Because government is the one you can, quote, always trust. Right? No. And that's candidly the pandemic that is surrounding and filling our country today. And my challenge today is to try and find ways to convince people that, like my cargo pants of old, these principles are timeless. And yes, I have them on soon. Thank you for being here today.
All right, next up we got, I would say he's been a great inspiration to many of us young college Republicans. We got Trevor Lee coming up next, but let me tell you, I don't think I have found someone who is so representative of conservative values, especially to us youth, as Trevor Lee. If I could please get a big round of applause to Trevor Lee. Thank you.
Seriously, thank you, everyone, and thanks, Dan, for taking a minute of my time. And I'm sorry you all have to hear 4 representatives in a row from the city of Utah. That's quite a bit. I wouldn't want to hear that myself, so here we are, I'll be the 4th one. And, you know, it's interesting. Some of you probably may know me because of tweets that I've had, or I guess you call them like X's now. And I had one a couple months ago where I said, diversity is not our strength. Okay? And, you know, when you have things that you say that are controversial to some, you rile up some interesting people. So I got a phone call from a Democrat, and they called me and they just went off. Diversity is our strength, what are you talking about? I mean, they were just like going off on me. And I'm like, look, man, like, if you can just do anything I said, that's fine. But let me ask you a question. If you think it's so good, I have a group of people, my wife or the grandma was Native American. And I said, go ask the Native Americans if they think diversity was a strength to them when we colonized America. And he just gets quiet and goes, okay, checkmate, Representative Lee, and hangs up. So I guess one of my points to this is there is a huge issue we have right now in this world, and there's a polarization with our different viewpoints that we share. I'm going to argue that on the right, that we truly do not want violence. We don't want to silence our opponents. That is not something that we advocate for. It's not something that we think is good. But there's been polling that has shown there are complete sections of the Democrat Party that not only want violence and think it's okay on Republicans and people they don't agree with, they have killed people for speaking out, like Charlie Kirk, because they disagreed with them. That is a problem. And it's very hard to get along with people when that is what they believe is their source to get what they want back is violence. And so I would say this, we as Republicans need to make sure that we stand together against those that when they get to power, go absolutely crazy with the issues. Look at what's happening in Virginia. Look at California, look at New York, look at Illinois, look at any dark blue state, and you tell me that is a place you want to live and a place that you would want to raise your family. And that is why I run for office, that is why many of my colleagues run for office, because we want to try to prevent Utah from turning into a blue Democrat-run state. And sometimes, guys, you have to make sure that we're being bold and we're standing up for principles, even if it's going against our own party. And so what I mean by that, I'm gonna bring this up here real quickly, is I see in Utah some of our biggest hurdles not being the 13.7% registered Democrats. I see a lot of times within our own party, it's Republicans. We had Representative McPherson talk about judges. Every one of those judges was appointed and confirmed by Republicans. We had a little issue we talked here about governmental control. Specifically, I'm gonna say illegal immigration being a serious issue in our state. Illegal immigration is a problem, not just because of Democrats, but it's a huge problem because of Republicans as well. And so, in this new day and age, what gives me hope is that there is an ability for a lot of the populist ideas of conservatism to rise and to gain traction. That is Donald Trump to a T. That is the young Republicans thriving right now. It is the solid conservative populist principles that put you first and your families, not big hedge funds, not the hospitality industry, not the agriculture industry, who are trying to allow people to come into our country legally, or they're trying to make sure that they're selling their jobs overseas. It is trying to work for you, to bring jobs back, to help make sure you can have a living wage, to help drive the cost of living down. Those are what true conservative principles are, and that's what we're trying to get back to here in the state of Utah. And that is the type of stuff that I fight for. And I will close with this. We are strong right now with where we're at. The college Republicans are doing a lot of good. They're standing up for the right candidates. They're trying to push for policies because it affects them. Part of the issue is that they are going to be the most impacted by the reckless spending that we have back in DC. And believe it or not, we have a lot of reckless spending in Utah as well. And we need to make sure that we are tidying up that, because you are all going to have to pay for that, specifically our college Republicans. And that's why they're fighting, because they want to make sure that this is a country and a state that they can live and have affordable for them and their families. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate you.
So our next speaker is someone who doesn't make a lot of public appearances, let me tell you too much. But I can tell you that I know that I make a pretty based ex-post if he liked my post. We've got Ben Rogers, otherwise known as Dr. Manhattva, coming up. Please give him a loud round of applause to Ben Rogers.
Thanks for having me. I don't do a lot of these things, so I need notes. I can't just get up here and crib like these guys. They've done it a million times. Yeah. There's a famous quote, it's also attributed to Winston Churchill. It says something to the effect that any young person who is not sufficiently liberal in his youth has no heart. This is something that Karianne Lisonbee said in court. And something to the effect of any old man who's not a conservative in his old age has no brain. I look out here and I see all of you young Republicans in college, and I see plenty of heart. But I'm glad to see you guys have skipped the point in your life where you didn't have a brain. So, my name is Ben Rogers. I don't know how I got up here. I'm the only person up here who's never run for office or anything. So, I'm actually a huge fan of all of these people. I know most of them personally quite well, and I will wholeheartedly endorse any one of them. They're warriors, they're up here fighting for everything that we hope for. They're getting, all the knives thrown at them. Thank you for everything you guys do. And is Nick Shirley in the room? No, he's hiding out. Well, I wanted to give props to Nick Shirley. Anybody that ratios Gavin Newsom every day is a friend of mine. And most importantly, the most important thing that Nick may end up doing is he may actually end up preventing Gavin Newsom from being the next president of the United States. I want to explain something to you about the difference between Republicans and Democrats. And Curtis Yarvin had a post on X, and I'm going to read this to make sure that I get it right. But it says, the right cares about power the way a wine snob cares about alcohol. The left cares about power the way an alcoholic cares about alcohol. That's true. When you realize that everybody has a religion, especially those that don't have a faith, it really explains where the left is coming from on most of the things that they do. Every aspect of their life is dependent upon their politics. Now, for Republicans and for us, what we end up doing, and in order, it's typically God, family, state, country. For them, it's just winning. It's just politics. But this is why we are happier people. This is why we never black guilt. Like J.D. Vance was saying yesterday. There's no line that they're not willing to cross to win. The Reddit people, and you guys all know exactly who I'm talking about, they're dangerous people. I've been doxxed. I've had photos of my front door taken because I post something on Twitter, or on X now, that they don't like. I've had my family doxxed, my kids doxxed. These are very unpleasant people, and they're dangerous, as we can see with Charlie Kirk. It's not all of them, but to a lot of them, winning is everything. Politics is everything. They'll excommunicate from daily life. We don't do that. In the Bible, just in the Bible by itself, I have other scriptures, but in the Bible itself, it actually says 365 times, fear not. We are commanded to fear not. And that's what we do. As young college Republicans, here's my advice to you. Be bold. Have adventures. Get married young and have a bunch of babies. I'm totally serious. Get married young and have a bunch of babies. Guys, ask the girl out. Girls say yes. Okay? That's how this works. Because we have a real problem. And if we just do this for 4 generations, we win. So do it. Get out there and do it. Stay engaged, participate, don't be afraid of defending what's right. Be a happy warrior. Most things will work out in the long run. I'm gonna steal a little bit from Donald Trump's 2019 State of the Union speech and adjust it for us. Imagine a future where Utah's best days are still ahead of us. Where our children grow up believing that anything is possible again. Where we don't apologize for our greatness, but we celebrate it. Where we choose strength over weakness, truth over lies, and unity over division. This is the Utah that we can build together. This is the Utah that inspires the world once more. This is the Utah that puts its people first. The choice is ours. The moment is now. Let us reignite the imagination of Utahns. Let's choose greatness again. Let's keep Utah first, always, because Utah is worth fighting for. Thank you.
I guess I can keep your notes. Who I got coming up next is a very special, I would say, mentor to many of us young people. And he actually just told me that he also owns parachute pants. So if we really want to know that about Mike Carey, there you go, fun fact. Mike Carey is the chair of the Salt Lake County Republican Party. He's been a great mentor to us young guys. Please give a big round of applause to Mr. Mike Carey.
Yeah, you haven't lived until you've slid on a gym floor playing kickball wearing parachute pants, got 3rd-degree burns on your shin as they melted. But originally, so I'm Mike Carey, I'm chair of the Salt Lake County Republican Party. Born and raised in New Jersey, where parachute pants are still mandatory. Moved out here about 15 years ago, thinking I was moving to like the reddest state on the planet. All right, safe bet, didn't have anything to worry about. And then I started to look under the hood a little bit. Okay, and here's some of the things I want to give you some observations that ultimately led to why I ran for county council 2 years ago. I didn't win, but why I elected to run for chair a year ago. One of the things I noticed about Utah in general is that it's noble, okay, to have charity and goodwill towards others, up until the point where those people are willing to take advantage of it as a weakness and see it as a weakness. So you need to know when to draw the line. Another observation, we've never had anything as conservatives as Republicans. We've really never had anything to lose in the state. And what have we seen in the last 5 to 10 years? We've seen, what we've seen in the last 5 to 10 years is a significant amount of erosion in that conservative stronghold, especially along the Wasatch Front. Why is that? Well, because we've never had anything to lose. We've never had to play like we had something to lose. The other side, the Democrats, the progressives especially, they got nothing to lose, they're all in. Okay, they're just there to take. And that's what we miss. That's the blind spot of Utah. So there's a lot of things we can talk about here. But I'm the chair of the Republican Party in Salt Lake County, and the most important races, I'm sorry folks, sorry guys in other races, but the most important races in Utah this year are in Salt Lake County. You got Matt's race, Trevor's race, not in Salt Lake County, but a little north. But these the county council, we have a slim 5-4 majority right now. If we don't hold that, tax and spending, Jim Wilson's going to have a field day from 2027 budget season. DA's race, if we don't get rid of Sim Gill and weld that revolving door shut of repeat offenders in Salt Lake County, you're going to continue to see the quality of life go down. There's other races there as well that we need to be mindful of in Salt Lake. So, what does that all mean? You as young Republicans that are here tonight, I'm calling on you to help us win at the front lines of Utah. Come November, Salt Lake County is the front line for the future of Utah. And if you don't start thinking like that, then we're going to lose. Okay? That's what's going to happen. Eventually, erosion is going to continue. It's going to grow along the Wasatch Front. This is not a fear tactic, folks. This is a reality. We've seen it for the last 5 to 10 years. Okay? So we need to double down. I want every young Republican, whether you live in Salt Lake County or not, I want you wearing out 2 sets of shoes this fall between Labor Day and Election Day. That's what we need. We need to be knocking every Republican door in Salt Lake County. Why? Because the Democrats beat us in turnout by 20 points in the blue sections of the county. If we get 5 to 10% over what we've done traditionally in the midterm election, we're going to kick their butts in every single race. That's the winning strategy. That's what we have to do. Okay? And then guess what? We're going to do it again in 28. And then we're going to do it again in 2030. And maybe, just maybe, at some point, the Democrats who have been dumping tons of money into this state for as long as I've lived here, 15 years, they've been dumping tons of money, and we are a clear mark for them right now on the national stage. Where do you think that money comes from? It ain't coming from here, folks. We kick their butts in 28, in 2030, and we can give them a nice little wave goodbye. After that, they take their money and that's where we need to be right now. We need to remind ourselves that Utah is not going to take, and sure as hell not going to be here. Thanks.
So coming up next, we got she's I would say a big inspiration, particularly.
Nick Shirley has exposed the fraud that many of us have noticed and seen. I'll tell you, there's a member of the legislature sitting in this room today. He texted me recently and said, hey, I acknowledge the friendship being a Republican, said, can you be a Republican with some of this? Because we know that this is going on in Utah as well. I am telling you, it is going on every place government money flows, and it always goes in the hands and pockets of Democrat operatives. So we know that there are great people in our state. Nick Shirley, Data Republican, and many others just on the ground doing hard work and exposing this. We know what's going on, and it is going to destroy the future of my children and grandchildren, your children and grandchildren, if we do not get this under control. At this point, the money's been spent, what are we, $37 trillion in debt? That is unpayable. When we look at the history of this nation, it's important for more than just the founding, but it's important for the lessons that we can learn from those who founded this great nation. They did not respond to a couple of bad policies. We have some legislators here, both at the state and the federal level. We see bad policies every single day. That is not what will destroy this country and what is destroying this country. It is long, and I see Speaker McCay. That is long and sustained abuses that cause them to rise up. I'm telling you, we have no choice. But at this point, to make some pretty significant changes. This is not anything that can continue. And if we look at our founding again, the leaders who were closest to the people were ignored by the leaders in England, by the king. They were shut down, they were disbanded when it became inconvenient, and power was spent without, money was spent, and power was exerted without any accountability. That is precisely what we're seeing occur today. Our founders did everything that they could. They petitioned, they wrote, I don't know if they protested, but they begged that fairness would reign supreme in the mind of the supreme ruler, much like what we're seeing today. And I'm sorry, but their petitions were ignored, and many of our petitions today are ignored. There was a consistent and growing pattern of power exercised beyond all limits that ought to have been exercised by government. And I will tell you, whenever that occurs, those who are the builders, those who provide the basics and the necessity for life are always the ones who are abused. The Declaration of Independence only three really important points laid out some principles that we have got to understand today. Rights do not come from government. Where do our rights come from? God. Government has one main duty, and that is to protect those rights. When it violates that, it is our job, our responsibility, and frankly, our God-given expectation to push back, to not give up. To not give in. And most importantly, to call on the individual from whom those rights flow. Because we will do nothing against a corrupt government if we are not on the side of God. Thomas Jefferson gave a warning. Look around, you'll see it every single time. The natural progress of things is for liberty to yield and government to gain ground. Always the degradation of what is right and what is good and what is true gives way to power. That is the way of the world, and we have lived in a state of mindless prosperity for far too long and have forgotten that our most basic and fundamental right is to resist that encroachment of government power in everything we do, while government has continued to pillage from the productive workers of today's America, and in the process sold our birthright to those who would use it for their own profit. This cannot continue. I'm going to finish up with a couple things. We will not give up. We have young people today who are exactly the people who need to be where they need to be in order to make the changes that are necessary. This country will be restored. Do not give up. Do not give in. Seek God in all that you do. We will win.
Hey, everybody. So glad to see you here. So glad that we've been able to put on this amazing event with some amazing speakers, some people who are really pushing this nation and the state of Utah in the right direction. And I'm very grateful as well for the words of Dalen, who mentioned certainly the characteristic that I find to be the most important, which is our joviality, my own smile. This is something that I kind of wear as a badge of honor. But it is actually what I would like to talk about today. Some of you may have noticed that there has been some recent backlash. It always seems like in the news there is bad news, and I could spend the time that has been allotted to me today going over some of the negative press, going over some of the things that people who disagree with us say, what the left says of Republicans, the divisions that exist. I could call names, I could do plenty of things, but I'm actually here to do the exact opposite. And it's interesting, because I feel that young conservatives, in particular young white men who seem to have this characterization thrown at them a lot, we seem to be called angry, spiteful, that we hate because we've been ignored, that we are driven out of an animosity, and this is why we have such radical and outside of the mainstream opinions. And I'm here to tell you that although it is true that there are opinions and concerns of ours that have been ignored, and that we are now speaking up about some of the issues that Representative Trevor Lee mentioned. Very grateful for his remarks. It could not be further from the truth that we are animated or motivated by spite and hate. This is an absolute lie. I hope that the smile on my face communicates this idea, and I hope that we all understand that hate is actually not even an effective political vehicle. Certainly not if we look to build anything for the future. This is something, the idea of hatred in politics is something that is purely reactionary. It requires the existence of some other constructive thing in order to validate its own existence. We are not here to have our existence, the existence of the United States of America, depend on others. We are here to make that nation, to perpetuate it, and to truly bring it into a golden age. That is our purpose here today. And everybody knows what most motivates them. We are motivated by a love of God, a love of family, a love of nation. And I think if I were to, instead of saying these three very important things, if I had told you that we are motivated by a love of money, I think everybody would have recoiled. Which is why I think it's very important to point out what is so ridiculous about the way that we do our politics. And it is that we seem to be unable to talk about many issues without simply considering the economic impact of them. So often, everything that we discuss in our politics, and especially from a conservative position, goes back to one thing, 3 letters, the GDP. That is a problem. A nation is more than an economic zone. And if we seek to empower and help Americans, it will be impossible to do so if we see them as nothing more than economic cogs in a machine. Does that mean that we have to embrace suicidal economic policies? Absolutely not. But it does mean that we have to be able to invest in the future, to invest in college Republicans, young people, even if it will come at a momentary and temporal decline in some of the economic markers that we have made our seeming one core issue for the past couple decades. We are seeing college graduates step out of the labor pool at rates that we have never before seen in American history. And their jobs are being given to people without American citizenship. And we do not support economically nationalist policies because we hate the people that come to the country for those economic goals. Of course, every individual will seek the best for his family. Every immigrant is seeking the best for themselves and for their family. But we have an obligation and a responsibility to Americans first. That is our duty. And it is a duty that we feel out of a love for those Americans, out of a love for these college Republicans and college students, whatever their political opinions might be. We can never actually defend or support or act on behalf of Americans if we can't define what an American is. And when you ask, well, what is an American? The answer is usually something along the lines of, well, it's somebody with a social security number. Well, I would ask, does that make everybody in the rest of the world an undocumented American? Are they just 8 numbers away from becoming an American? Or is it something deeper? Is it a history? Is it a culture? Is it a language? Are they values? Is it a vision? I posit today that there is something important about what it means to be an American and what it means to be a conservative and a Republican, and it is idealism. Now, when I got interested in politics, it was the 2016 election, which was a contentious time. You know, that was absolutely a time that people were maybe tuning in for the first time ever to what was happening. You'd hear the debates, you'd hear, you know, some of these clippable moments on Twitter at the time. And I would say, I thought I was going to be the one making the most Gen Z references, but I think Dr. Manhattva actually beat me tonight. And I think he's making a little bit more on Twitter because of that. I got to up my game, actually. But thinking about the 2016 election, I want us all to reflect on what that taught us. The candidate who won that election, President Donald Trump, was not the most viable, not the most palatable, and not even the most popular for a minute. And then I think he quickly won that last section. I think he did become the most popular, but for a long time was not the most viable candidate, especially to a Republican establishment. But what happened? He won. We are now losing this sense of idealism that brought us to victory in the 2016 election, and we do so at our own peril. The Republican Party and conservatives oftentimes adopt the framing of the left, and I'm here to say we can do that no longer. The moments that we spend arguing against their caricatures of the American nation as a nation that has been forever racist, as a nation that was never good and whose triumphs are reduced to the triumphs of their political agenda, the moments that we spend debating those ideas with them are moments that we are sacrificing, which need to be used to establish a more positive vision for what this nation can become. We are losing this sense of idealism. And we cannot. We are losing the sense of joy that we should be engaging in politics with. And we cannot. We cannot allow ourselves to become the caricatures that they make us out to be. You must always subvert their expectations. This vision of America as a racist nation is an absolute lie. The vision of America as a nation that exploits, a nation that takes advantage of all those who are here, is not a correct vision. This is an exceptional nation. We must be happy to say that. Ironically, one of the individuals who talked about the idea of striving to do more, striving to be more, one of the people who best talked about what America was a French guy, a Frenchman by the name of Alexis de Tocqueville. Many of you, of course, are familiar with his work, Democracy in America. He came to the United States in the 1830s, and he wrote some words that I think are very important to hear, especially today. He wrote, "Moralists are constantly complaining that the ruling vice of the present time is pride. This is true in one sense, for indeed no one thinks that he is not better than his neighbor, or consents to obey his superior, but is extremely false in another. For the same man who cannot endure subordination or equality has so contemptible an opinion of himself that he thinks he is born to indulge in vulgar pleasures. He willingly takes up the low desires without daring to embark in lofty enterprises, of which he scarcely dreams. Thus, far from thinking that humility ought to be preached to our contemporaries, I would have endeavors made to give them a more enlarged idea of themselves and of their kind. Humility is unwholesome to them. What they most want is, in my opinion, pride. I would willingly exchange several of our small virtues for this one vice." The words of the Frenchman, of course, are a little controversial. I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and I'm not here to tell you that you should, be a more prideful person, but I am here to tell you that you should aspire to be greater, that you should let your mind soar, that you are made for more than carnal pleasures, that you are more than an economic cog in a machine, that a nation is more than an economic zone. And as soon as we understand all of those parts, we will happily see the reason that thousands, hundreds of pioneers died trying to make Utah the state that it is today. And this is a state that could fall. We absolutely must not believe that everything has been guaranteed us. In fact, it is that pride that is most dangerous in politics. We must understand that if we want Utah, and if we want Utah to be great, we must be willing to fight, and we must be willing to call it exceptional. Thank you very much.
Up next, we have someone who was a former state House representative. He has fought for transparency his entire career. He is now running for Congressional District 3 here in Utah. Please give a big round of applause for Mr. Phil Lyman.
Thank you. It's so good to be here, and I love being in it. Back at the University of Utah, I graduated from there years back with an accounting degree. I brought a gift for a friend, Dr. Manhattva. I put this out on the website that I had the Yellow Cake Caucus for 6 years in the legislature, and Ben said, I'd wear that hat, so here's the hat, Ben. And I looked into it, I was talking about Ben. When I first met Ben, I'd seen his profile picture on X. When I met him, I said, oh my gosh, you look like your profile picture. He walks around looking as good as his profile picture. It's amazing. And on that note, while we're talking about X real quick, God bless Elon Musk, right? God bless Joe, God bless Donald Trump. I mean, but we don't say God bless Mark Zuckerberg. He tried to buy our elections for $400 million. He started ERIC, the Electronic Records Information Center, where all of your data gets sent, all of your voter rolls, all of your driver's license information gets sent to Electronic Records Information Center. It's a Democrat, left-wing organization designed to get out the vote for Democrats, to suppress the vote for Republicans. And when we say we want to see our voter rolls in Utah because we want clean voter rolls, that's what we're asking for, is to see the same thing that we're giving over to this left-wing organization called ERIC. Mentioned that I talked about a little bit about transparency. Transparency, you cannot fix a problem if you don't know it exists. And that is the tactic of so many people in the government agencies, is to keep this suppressed. You can't see it. Never before has a candidate asked to see the signatures of their opponent and been denied. And there's a reason that happened to me in 2024, and that's because their signatures could not withstand scrutiny. That's a problem when you can't have honest elections. Now, I'm getting way off here. I do want to say a couple of things. This last week, I had a friend of mine. She came into my office. Her husband was one of my best friends. Passed away a couple of months ago, and he's a cattleman. And she wanted to know what to do with the ranch, how she should handle the ranch. She said, "We've got a lot of cows. We don't have a lot of money." Speaker Shultz, does that sound familiar? Yeah, if you got a lot of cows, you don't have a lot of. You might have both. A little better than that, but yeah, prices are up. We've got land, a little bit of private land. We've got equipment. We've got a lot of grazing permits. Down where I come from, there is no real private land. It's all grazing permits. It goes back to 1848 with the Treaty of Philadelphia, and when we got that land, that's what they have. They have public land and they have grazing permits. Well, this ranch happens to be in the middle of the Bears National Monument. It was there long before the National Monument. It was there before statehood. Actually, the first person that got these grazing permits was a man by the name of Walter C. Lyman, his great-grandpa, and his brother Platt. And that's where I live. That's where I come from. That's what I watch. It's in the middle of the Bears National Monument. And they come in and they try to push these people out of business. They try to destroy their livelihood. She said, "I'm not sure if the ranch is viable. My son would like it. My grandsons would like it." And I said, I'll call her Sarah. I'll call her husband John. It's not their own names. And I said, "Sarah, you have something that billionaires, corporate presidents, will never have and would love to have. You have an honest living. You're out there doing it, and I promise you that John would want you to keep this ranch and keep it in the family. And if you lose it, you still have an honest livelihood. You have an honest existence. And that's, I guess, what I want to say to all of you, the young college Republicans. It is about what Ben said. Have babies. Teach them that in America they're free, that they can ride their bikes till sundown. That's what Charlie Kirk said. That is America. That's who we are. We are not people who are set on, ambition, avarice, and greed. We're people who want to raise good families and live in a free country and enjoy the blessings that come from that. It's such a privilege for me to have been in the legislature, to have been a county commissioner. I went to jail for my stand against the federal government. It was purely political prosecution. That was an honor for me as well. Every bit of experience that I've had in this space has been a real blessing to me and a real blessing to my family. We've got beautiful kids, beautiful grandkids. They live here in CD3, in this district, in Utah that I'm running for Congress, and I hope that I can continue to serve the people of Utah in the way that they have served me and with all that they've done for me. Thank you very much. God bless you.
Our next speaker is honestly someone who probably has the hardest job in the entire legislature. And I think this goes for and specifically this position at the state and federal level, really needs no more of an introduction. We have Speaker Mike Schultz. Please give him a big round of applause.
Boy, it's great to be with you guys today. I got to start off by saying how excited I am for how your organization has grown. Literally, a little over a year ago, it was zero almost. Very little interest, not a lot of participation. And over the last year, I have been absolutely amazed at how you all have came together, organized, putting on events like this, getting some very influential people, not just here in the state, but in the nation to come. Congratulations, keep it up, we need more of it. So 12 years ago, I had nothing to do with politics. I was running businesses, raising a family, enjoying my life. I honestly never thought I'd ever run for office. Sure, I was involved while I followed politics. I ran for a delegate position a couple times and served as a delegate. But I never thought that I'd ever run for a seat. But I was looking for something to do, a little bit different to do in life, and I wasn't sure exactly what that was, but I had a couple issues that were important to me. And I called my state representative at the time, and he had the wrong answer. And I thought to myself, what the hell? I'm just going to throw my hat in the ring, or my name in the hat, and see what happens. And I honestly didn't think I'd win, but I had got the right people behind me. I worked extremely hard, and ended up winning. And here I am today, 12 years later, and serving as having an incredible opportunity to serve as Speaker of the House here in the greatest state of the nation, Utah. And I never planned it. That was important. But sometimes things happen in your life and you have the opportunity to step up and make a difference. I hope you guys pay attention to that because it's so important. When you see those opportunities, jump in, make a difference. Don't procrastinate. I want to just talk about a couple of things I've learned in politics and have an opportunity to serve in the legislature, and that is conservative governance works. Across the country, people are voting with their feet. You're seeing it happen right now. People are fed up in the blue states. They're moving out of California, Oregon, and Washington. California is shutting down all of their, not all, but a lot of their fuel production. It's raising, skyrocketing prices on gasoline, electricity, and all the things. And they're moving to more red states where we still have, I think, a little bit of common sense and understanding how the real world works. Conservative policies create opportunities. We know this. Everyday people can feel the difference when government gets out of the way, right? When government isn't in the way, small government means decisions are made closer to you at the local and state levels. But it also means that government is not the answer to everything, right? We learned that in COVID. Think about what happened during COVID, and everybody wanted government to solve the problem. And they got involved in it and screwed it up and made it even worse than what it was. Low taxes, keeping more of what you earn. How important is that, right? Especially, you look at a state like Utah, 6 years in a row we've lowered taxes. California's been raising taxes. California today has a budget deficit the size of Utah's budget, $30 billion. Think of that for just a minute. Free markets. Letting the free market work is so important. Utah's been ranked as the #1 most independent state in the nation because we understand that it's government's job to take care of the core responsibilities and functions, infrastructure, education, public safety, and then get the hell out of the way and let the people live their lives. Both really important. I got 3 pieces of advice that I'd like to leave with you today. Don't give up something you want most for something you want now. I'm going to say it one more time. Think about it. Don't give up something you want most for something you want now. What does that mean? Discipline matters. Whether it's in your career, your education, your values, think long term. Don't think in the right now, here and now. Think long term. Think a year, 2 years, 3 years ahead. And what is it that you want the very most? Don't just talk. Actually do. It's easy to post, to comment, to debate. Sometimes that's the funnest, right? But it's harder to show up, knock doors, run for office, and help pass good public policy. The people shaping the future are not the loudest. I'm going to say that again. The people shaping the future are not the loudest. The people shaping the future are the ones that show up and do the work. Another one, look, as Republicans, as conservatives, there's a wide range of what people think is conservatism and what Republicans are. And we want to create a space where we can come together, right? Where we can work together as Republicans. I like to think of it as politics like a marriage. We share the same values, we agree on most things, but that doesn't mean that we're always going to get along, and that's okay. We can have those disagreements, and we should. But there has to be a little bit of give and take. In our caucus meeting all the time, I say, if you're on the more moderate side of our caucus, or if you're on the more conservative side of our caucus, if we're going to get something done and move the needle in a positive direction, I'm going to need you to move just a little bit and come a little bit towards each other and work together as a team, right? That's when we can get things done. Doesn't mean we have to compromise our values. That's important. But it does mean that we have to find ways to work together to move the needle in a positive direction. It's a choice between getting part of what we want or getting nothing at all. I'll take 80% of conservative values all day long over getting nothing done. And so many people forget that important part. It doesn't matter if you want to build anything meaningful, a family, a business, your work, you have to work with others to get things done. Now, let me give you a quick example that'll resonate with you guys on some things that we did in the state of Utah, working together with our higher education institutions. Who feels like our higher education institutions are a little too far to the left? Yeah. Well, I'm here to tell you 2 years ago, they were a lot further to the left with DEI and gender studies programs here. It seemed like they wanted to focus on everything else except for what mattered most, education, right? All the political issues of the day, that's what they were all wrapped up in. But yet we were facing real concerns. Future declining enrollment, rising costs, DEI, programs that weren't leading to opportunities, a culture that wasn't welcoming to conservative viewpoints. It would have been easy just to discredit those higher institutions, and many times I did, honestly, and we all did. There was a discussion on what do we do? Do we slash funding? Do we pass more laws? What do we do? We decided to jump in together, roll up our sleeves, and get to work. And I want to give a shout out to Representative Karen Peterson. She did most of the work on this. But we found a way to come in, we cut 10% of your budget. And we said, go to work, focus on what matters most. Put the students first. If you're not putting the students first, it's not gonna matter. Put the students first, and then the DEI stuff, all the political stuff that you're focused on, if you don't stop it, knock it off, you're not gonna get this 10% back. But if you bring to us a plan where you can actually show that you're focused on the students, you're focused on getting good outcomes, you're focusing on the jobs that matter, then we'll let you reallocate that plan. What results did we get? We got, let's see, we pushed for the system that actually lines with the workforce to get things done. The University of Utah in itself cut 81 degree programs that were producing one graduate per year or less. Think about that. 81 programs, that was it. So, and then we reduced administrative costs all across the state in every institution. So here's what I'll leave with you really quick. We don't need any more people to just stand up and talk about the problems. We need people who are willing to do them and work to do them. It's easy to say no, and it's even easier to criticize. It's a lot harder to show up and do the work, roll up your sleeves, learn how to solve problems. People aren't learning how to solve problems today. Please solve problems. Along the way, you'll get to work with people that you love, people that you disagree with, and you'll actually move the needle to do something better. That's not weakness. That's actually strength. The future of Utah, the future of America is up to you guys. Please get involved. I'm telling you, if you're not there involved, somebody else is, and they don't have your best interests at heart. Keep Utah red, keep staying conservative. Thank you all for being here today.
Our next speaker is, he's a phenomenal man to me. Maybe I'm stealing your thunder here, but it's kind of cool when you won a Super Bowl, and then you had a family, then you started an organization, and then you came and became a congressman. That is a phenomenal job to do, and now he is retiring. Please give a warm welcome to our congressional candidate, our congressional representative, Burgess Owens.
Boy, how you guys doing? Let me start off by saying I've heard the kind of theme of my talk throughout this afternoon. And I want to kind of start off with that, we'll end up with that. That is, Heavenly Father has a perfect plan for you. You being here is part of it. My history, my background was all preparation for me to make sure you understood that He has a perfect plan for you, for our great state of Utah, in particular this great country we live in. I was raised by one of the greatest generation. That was my dad's generation, that 18 to 20, 25-year-old kids would go to war. Would go to the east of Germany, Normandy, and the jungles of the Philippines, all to fight for this remarkable thing we have, this great country we have. What made that generation so unique, not only did they go and win and fight, but they came back and built the greatest middle class our nation's ever seen before. Began to break down the walls because they had this confidence. And they had this idea that they too were here for a purpose. They had a particular plan. And one of the things they did, I was so blessed to be raised with this, is they raised a generation that learned how to respect women, learned how to respect their wives and daughters, this great country they fell in love with, and they taught their sons to do the same. I'm here to tell you about the perfect plan that I've seen here, and actually why Utah is a big piece of that. Understand it, and Speaker Mossos just said, just highlighted the great things that's happening here. Just understand that we are the Western gateway of this country. We are the model in terms of culture, of service, of entrepreneurship, of thinking outside the box, of embracing differences. We have the highest percentage of entrepreneurs, the greatest amount of service. We also have remarkable wealth and mineral and energy. What makes it so unique is that all these things let's talk about is what brings us here. It makes us the greatest and fastest growing state in the country. We have oil, gas, coal, geothermal. We have critical minerals, lithium, copper, beryllium. No state in the country has that breadth of energy and opportunities and wealth. My point is this: I want you to understand that what brought you here, what keeps you here, will help you to build a middle class, is how this state started. It was part of a perfect plan from the very beginning. Because this state started 500 million years ago, 300 feet under ocean. This was all, you go outside, you see this beautiful country we have, this beautiful geography we have, this is all underneath water at one point. The prehistoric times that we had. The shifting slates created the washout slumps. It also trapped those resources we now pull out of the depth of our earth. This is what brought you here. It started over 500 million years ago, and you're here now representing, you were born at a time to represent the 250th year of our nation. You're here to be educated and to understand how to take this next generation on to the next phase. The biggest thing we can do now is make sure that we need to fight for what we sometimes take for granted. We need to fight for this remarkable culture we have, this remarkable gift we have. And how do we do that? Be educated, be smart enough and confident enough about who we are that we can listen to other people and still be respectful. The minute we do that, we truly become the one nation, one way we want to make sure we become. I will say this also: continue to knock doors. And I'm going to make a big ask, because it's something we do right now to make sure we hold on to our state. It's kind of been talked about a little bit today. Our state is not the conservative red state that we deserve to be. And it's because the left plays games. The left loves to smile as they're stabbing in the back, as they're making their little moves, make things happen. We need to make sure that we hold people accountable. I want everybody to take out your phone for a minute. This is the next step I'm going to ask you guys to do. It's time for us to bring this state to a point where people realize they are accountable for we the people. They're accountable for our state constitution and our state culture. I want you to type into your notes, Diane Hagman, Supreme Court Judge, Hagen. Jill Foreman, Folman, Supreme Court Judge. These are people that we have a chance this November to vote no on retention.
Yes.
Let's tell you how it works. This is how it works. These guys get very cocky. So you put on their black robes, they hide behind the bench, they're not accountable to anybody. They have 3 years first to come up with this retention vote. You know what the next one's gonna be? 10 years. We cannot let these people stay around for 10 years. Now is our time. So I hope everybody wrote that down, because it's important that you share this. This needs to be a sprint. This needs to be an effort that we all take advantage of. And you young people, by the way, the point I was gonna make earlier, you represent the next greatest generation. You represent the generation I grew up with that gave this remarkable country of becoming a more perfect union. But it's now time for you to get it done at this point. So we need to make sure those two people vote no, get your friends to vote no, get everybody you can think of and don't know of to vote no. We also need to make sure, by the way, what else they did? They ruled to help the Democrats, of course, to gerrymander this Marxist rich Democratic district. They also ruled against Utah legislation for the abortion ban. And they allow super laws to bypass our legislative body, the ones that we vote for. They need to be doing something else. The other one is Diane Gibson, state judge. Every 6 years, this is the year to help go home, okay? Let me tell you what happens with accountability. I'm going to let this go next minutes. You see what happens when bureaucrats don't see accountability? They get very confident. They get very cocky. They don't have to talk to anyone, to explain anything. Because as far as they're concerned, they are guaranteed to continue their lifestyle as they destroy everybody else's. We send these 3 people home, it's going to be a message, my friend. It's going to be a message that this doesn't happen in Utah anymore. It's a message that 500 years ago, the perfect plan for Utah to be the state it is today, to raise and bring the remarkable young people we have that's going to not only well here, be educated here, but stay here. This is a plan that makes sure our country stays strong. This is national security for our nation, because I tell you what, Utah is very, very cutting edge of all that. So let's make this happen, my friends. I just want to say how proud I am of what you're doing at this age. Let's make this work. Keep this country, keep this state strong. Keep this state conservative, and the rest of the country will follow this lead, okay? Thanks so much, appreciate it.
Our next speaker, he has been a phenomenal conservative voice in Congress for us. He has been a man who has fought for a lower budget. He's passed bills and has even drafted one to ban the mutilation for those under 18. Sorry, Burgess, but I'm gonna have to give it to Kennedy when I say he's my favorite one. Maybe I'm biased because he's mine, but ladies and gentlemen, please give a loud round of applause for Dr. and Congressman, Mr. Mike Kennedy.
Honored to be here with you, College of Bohemians. Thank you very much for coming today. I live in a place called Washington, D.C., and I'm sick and tired of it. They make no sense there. The Save America Act, it's a simple bill. All they're asking for is you need to be an American citizen to vote. And when you vote, you need to have a photo ID to vote. You know, every Democrat that voted against it used a photo ID on the floor of the House of Representatives to vote against a photo ID to vote, which is nonsense. That's the kind of place that I live and work now. Most of you know I'm a family doctor professionally, and I'm used to nonsense and I'm used to lies. My patients lie to me all the time about their health behaviors. They tell me when I'm looking at their diabetes, their high blood pressure, their sleep apnea, and they're 80 pounds overweight, they tell me all about the fruits and vegetables that they're eating on a regular basis. So I'm like, fruits and vegetables aren't getting you where you are today. So I'm used to nonsense. I'm used to people lying to me. I've been doing it professionally for 25 years. I know how this world works. And I'm tired of it. Washington, D.C. is full of that sort of thing. And I'm a patient guy. I'm going to work my way through that place. And I'm going to make sure that it works for you instead of you working for Washington, D.C. That's one of my key focus points that I have. Dalen, thank you very much for the introduction. And I take my interns, and the teaching of my interns is one of the most significant responsibilities that I have as a congressman. As a family doctor, I took it the same when I had medical students in my office. Why do I care about you? Why do I care about my interns? Why do I care about the medical students? Because you are not only the present, you are also the future. And I know that at some future point, and I try to take care of myself, that at some future point, I will be sick and I'll need a doctor. And that doctor might actually have been my medical student at some point in the past. I also know that at some point in the future, when I'm done with this job, and it's going to come at some point, nobody can stay forever in these positions, and that's good. We need to turn this stuff over, right? But I want my interns to know that Dalen's been an outstanding servant of my people for the time he's been there, as has Carissa and Samuel and Adam. Those are my current interns, and I love my interns. These are great people, and I know that I selfishly need to teach them and take care of them because they are the future city council members. They're the future mayors, they're the state representatives and senators. They will be the congressmen. They may be the president of the United States at some point. And I know in this room, that's what you are. You are those people. And I'm invested in helping you get to where you need to be. So if you need any help along the way, my team and I stand ready for that. But I'd like to tell you a few pointers in my life with the time that I have that suggested that I was on the right path to get to where I am. Just to kind of give you some insight into how did I get to where I am, and where are you at, and maybe you you could use that as some examples for you as to where you're heading. So the first thing I want to point out, so I'm 57 years old. I came from a family of 7. I was number 2 of 7, and I learned early on that if I had a responsibility with my siblings and I fulfilled that it gave me a great pleasure to take care of my siblings and help them. I learned early on with a big family that I love people. And if you love people and you find them interesting, I'm a big fan of blasting off rocket ships. I love science, and I think the beauty of nature is remarkable and all that sort of thing. But I've decided in my life that people is what life is all about. That focusing on people and trying to help them with their issues is my privilege. I learned that in my family, that when I help people, I feel better and I learn a lot from them. The second thing I learned, my parents divorced when I was early teens. I learned early on that if I didn't control money would ruin my life. I was a free school lunch kid. My mom and dad divorced, and our family economy went to the really terrible places. And as a result, I was on church welfare, and I every 2 weeks would have to go get my free school lunch punch card. It was just a punch card. Look, I grew up in the Stone Age. There was no virtual opportunities. It was just a punch card. And I was humiliated that I had to go to the principal's office and pick this up, often from a student who was one of my fellow students who had handed it to me. And as that humiliation sunk in of being a poor kid who was just trying to get lunch from the free lunch school lunch program, I realized that money was really important to manage. When it comes to our $39 trillion deficit, I take every serious accountability for that deficit, because I am not going to leave that filth to you and your posterity as a result of our negligence. We're working on a national debt, because I realized early on that we better get a handle on deficit and money, otherwise it's going to run us over. The next thing is maybe a little bit more than you might want to know about me, but I want you to know that life is hard. And when I was in my early teens, that was the first time that I took access to pornography. Back in those days, it wasn't in my pocket on a cell phone, it was in magazines. And I know, I can guarantee you, somewhere in this room, somebody has, at least one person has challenges with that. And I want to point out that for years, I knew that was wrong. And I knew that every time I consumed some version of pornography, that I was on the wrong path. But it was really hard to resist. I was addicted. And I know what addiction is like. And as a person that was struggling with that for years, in my later teens, when I went on a church mission, I was able to work my way through that. There wasn't any good program. I didn't get any good advice. Frankly, what I was told as a kid is, well, that's just what boys do, and that's just okay for you to do that. But I knew in my heart it was wrong. And I knew I needed to get a handle on that. Why did I need to get a handle on that? I did, as I struggled through that through my teens. That finally, in my later teens and then early 20s, I did a better job. But as I 20s to 30s, I did a better job. And I'll just say, I'm still addicted to that kind of stuff, but I'm a recovering, 30-year recovering addict to pornography. And I'm proud of that fact, because I'm not touching that stuff. Not to reveal too much or get into the weeds on that issue, but you have issues, and you feel in your heart that this is not right for you, because you've got big things to do in the future. And I'd like you to wonder, if I was a congressman, and I have all the land to Washington, D.C., and whatever might come my way that place, and you knew that I was addicted to something like that, and I'll put in drugs, and alcohol, or gambling, or any number of other things, would you be comfortable supporting me as a congressman if I had that internal issue? And I'm just telling you, I don't have those issues. Not because they're not in me. My dad is a recovering alcoholic, as is my brother. It's genetically connected to the Kennedy family. Goodness sake, we're Irish people. I mean, that's what we do. It's really, you know? Genetically, I'm programmed to be an alcoholic, but I've never touched it, so I'm not an alcoholic. But I want you, as young people, who are going to be in the future in really important positions. And if you're vulnerable, if you've got that weakness, and somebody comes to you, they're going to use that against you, you will find yourself compromised. And you will not be able to execute on the tasks that you have for the future if you today don't work on those things. So I want you to know right now that I understand that you may or may not have those issues. I hope you don't. But if you do have those issues, you work diligently, you get all the help that you can. Because it's just you now, maybe, but in the future, you've got responsibilities that are going to make it so that you may be crushed under those difficulties that you're not going to deal with. So I wanted to bring that up to you as well, because I think that's a really important point. The last thing that I want to say to you is the future is yours if you're willing to take it. You need to be accountable and responsible. As a guy myself, I would go to my child's soccer game, and at that soccer game, standing on the sidelines watching the game, I would give myself fake questions from an adversary on the policies of the day, and I would verbally respond while everybody else was listening. I was walking and pacing the sideline of my child's soccer game, answering those questions verbally to try to prepare myself for the day that at that point wasn't even existent, that I would actually handle those adversarial circumstances. And as a result, I've given some terrible responses to adversaries on the Senate floor of the state, and I've not always done great speeches, but that practice was important. I felt in my heart that there was something in the future for me. And I want you to know the future is bright. This is the United States of America. You practice those speeches on quiet times. People may think you're schizophrenic or think you have mental illness because you're talking to yourself. Sometimes when you talk to yourself, it's the only sensible person around anyways. You might as well just talk to yourself, because a lot of people around don't always make sense. But you practice discipline. You work hard at everything you do. You build strong relationships with people, and you act professionally, civilly, and with thoughtfulness with everybody. Because the janitor, the intern, the colleague, as well as somebody that's higher than you on the hierarchy of life, all of them matter. They're all God's children. We treat everybody with respect. But I want you to know that you have a bright future. This is the United States of America. And as a poor kid coming from a divorced family, where I struggled with my own versions of addiction, my family certainly did as well. You have an amazing future ready to unfold in this United States of America. That as you're willing to take it, it's going to be there for you. So God bless you. God bless the great state of Utah. And God bless the United States of America. Thanks for having me.
Wow, give it up for Mike Kennedy. All righty, we have had such an amazing event. Have you guys had a quality Learing experience? Has this been great or what? Can we give it up just one more time for all of our amazing speakers here? I know our elected officials have such busy schedules. All right, next up, we're going to have the man of the hour. I don't even know anybody who's hotter than Nick Shirley right now. Can anybody name someone right now? Please take it out. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Nick Shirley. There we go. We love that. Love that. Well, I'm super excited to be here, and it's a great opportunity to be here as well. So I just got in just yesterday. I think I've had maybe, if not one of the craziest past week in my life. I think last week alone, do you want to hear something super crazy? So last week, in between the hours, within 48 hours, I had a meeting with Elon Musk. President Trump talked about me in a cabinet meeting, and then I had a meeting with J.D. Vance in 48 hours. And in between those 48 hours, I went to 7 states in 48 hours. It was absolutely berserk. But today I want to talk to you guys, especially because I'm in an audience of people my age. I'm super excited. Sometimes I'm like a bunch of boomers. All right, but today we're here with a bunch of college kids. So I want to give you guys a bit about my story, and then also some tips that have really helped me. Because if you guys haven't noticed, I'm not like the most smart person in the world. You guys are probably a lot smarter than me, actually. You guys are, I did 2 years of college. You guys are, some of you are about to graduate. So, but I have learned a lot of things just by going out and doing the thing. And so I want to tell you guys a little bit about how I got into what I'm doing now. So I've been making YouTube videos since I was 15 years old. Some of you might have even seen those videos. They were
I was like a young prankster, vlogger, just having fun with my friends. When I was 16, I went to New York City all by myself without telling my parents. I get to New York, my mom's like, Nick, where are you at? I said, Mom, I'm at Connor's house playing basketball. And she said, no, you're not. You're with, why does your location say you're in New York City? And the crazy thing about that was I was next to some family right down on the airplane. I said, well, here's my phone, talk to my mom. The lady ended up booking me a hotel so I could stay there. But I tell that story because when I was 16 years old, I learned that you could just go do things. As soon as I got that debit card and I realized my parents couldn't see what I was spending my money on, I would just go in places. And then I learned on that trip that I could go somewhere and I could just go by myself and I could make stuff happen. I didn't need another camera person, I didn't need someone else to be with me. And it really helped me when I graduated high school to be able to just go do things. Like, when's the last time you ever went to the movie on your own, even though you wanted to go? Most of us probably haven't really done it. But we can just go and do things. And so then I continued to YouTube, and then I go on a mission, come back, and I had written exactly what I wanted to do when I got back from my mission. I had created a 5-year plan. If I were to show you guys what I wrote on that, you would be amazed because literally everything has checked out. It's even gone beyond what I even expected. Now I'm like sitting here, I'm thinking, like, wait, what do I write now? Like, what do I write? Like, what do I want to do in 5 years? I already, like, I did what I wanted to do. And it's kind of a weird position to be in, but I'm a firm believer when you write stuff down, it happens. And especially when you write something down and you see it every single day. I remember when I was in high school, I'd always be writing my goals down like mirrors, and my friends would come downstairs like, Nick, that is so weird. What are you doing? And now if I show them a screenshot of that photo on the mirror, that I had to go up 10,000 subscribers and to be able to get a video to 1 million views, now they're like, oh, that makes sense. Like, you have to always be thinking, like, okay, this is what I want to do, and I'm just going to go and do it. And so that really helped me. And then when I started to see what was happening in the country, and after I had learned Spanish, I started going to the border, and I started to see how corrupt our country can be, and how corrupt things can be. Because on that 5-year plan, I had the ideas of what I was going to do when I came back as far as my YouTube. And I didn't realize it at the time, but it was journalism. So my plan was just to go to interesting places and cover interesting things. And I had no idea that was journalism. I thought I was just making YouTube videos. And all of a sudden, people are like, oh, Nick, you're a journalist. I'm not. I guess so. And so now I'm a journalist. But what I did when I go to the border, I started talking to these people. I was speaking Spanish, and I thought these people were going to be running away because they were scared of their lives. Instead, they're like running to me. They're like, hola, ¿cómo está? I'm like, what are you guys doing? Like, aren't you guys supposed to be running that way? And they were running literally into the hands of Border Patrol. And I said, wait, you guys just broke the law. How are you guys like so excited to like turn yourself in? And then I ended up getting one of the ladies' WhatsApp, who was, she was an immigrant from Ecuador. She gave me her WhatsApp, and I was like all concerned about her and her son. I said, well, like, what are you guys gonna do? Like, I gave the kid like some clothes out of the back of my car, I gave him some money, and next day they're in New York City. I said, what? How are you guys in New York? Like, that makes no sense. Like, I just got back from a mission, I already have money to buy a ticket in New York. How are you guys, both of you, flying to New York? I just gave you $10. That's what I meant for a flight ticket. And so then I messenger. She says she's in New York. I saved up money to go to New York City, and I created a video about what was happening inside of the New York City migrant crisis. Nobody had any idea that these people were being flown to New York City, then they're being housed inside of, not like the janky hotel you stay at in New York City, they were staying in 5-star hotels. And not only were they staying for 1 or 2 nights, they were staying for 7 months. On top of that 7 months, they were getting 3 meals a day, they were getting health care, and they were having children. So the expenses that any of us would have to pay for, they weren't paying for it. And I said, well, how can that be? That is so messed up. That our government's using our money. And then I kept going back to the border, and I'd hear more and more stories. I was like, oh my gosh, like, the government is like trafficking people here into the United States. So then I had the idea to go to El Salvador, because I looked at the map, I was like, okay, if I'm gonna track down a cartel group, I'm gonna hop in a caravan, that's like half speed of where the film grew. So I get to El Salvador, and they're like, no, God, migrants. Like, what are you doing here? I was like, wait, what happened? And like, oh, we got a good president now. We have Nayib Bukele. Nothing's happening here. It's like, that's weird. So then I go to Mexico City, and I go to all these encampments, and you literally had thousands of people waiting to come into the United States to be flown into the United States. They're all hoping that they were going to get in and it's called the CBP-1 Act. They're hoping they were going to be able to fly in on the CBP-1 Act. And I'm like, oh my gosh, the government is literally incentivizing people to be living in the streets of Mexico City. There's little kids right here, while all these cartel members are controlling these people's lives. I said, well, that's like very corrupt. Like, that is very bad. And these people that are saying they're so for human rights, talking about how everyone deserves an opportunity. Meanwhile, they're ruining all these people's lives. Little kids are living in the streets because of what they wanted to do. So that really got me into government corruption. And then I started looking into elections, and I was like, there's no way people can be voting for, what's her name, Kamala? Like, no one still knows. Like, seriously. I would be filming videos, and they'd be like, oh, that's how we know you're a Republican, you're saying Kamala. I'm like, I don't know what it looks like. It looks like how it reads. Kamala, whatever her name was, she went, thank goodness. And then from there, I kept covering what was happening. You had the ICE raids, all that stuff. I was covering the protest. But I went to the United Kingdom, and I saw what was happening with the rise of Islam. And I started to see that, whoa, this is like a really big problem. I thought I was going to go to London. I didn't think it was going to feel like you're in the Middle East. I didn't think you would go to a little town by the name of Luton, and when I had brought my mom with me, they were like shuffling her away. There's no other woman there. I was like, this is really weird. What's going on? And I speak with some people there. They're like, yeah, this is happening here. I was like, oh, this is probably going to happen to us as well. So I started looking into it, and everyone knew kind of about Dearborn, Michigan, when the rise of Islam there. But nobody was really talking about what's happening in Minnesota. So in June, I go to Minnesota, and I see Christian churches being converted to mosques. I'm like, this is kind of weird. And then I go to this area called Cedar Riverside inside of Minnesota, and that's kind of where a lot of the Somalians all live. It's kind of like their area. It's a massive apartment complex, and there's no white people, there's no Mexicans, there's no Asians, it's just Somalians. I'm like, this is super weird. And I'm walking around and filming with my camera, and they're like, patting the camera like, no, you can't film here. I'm like, what do you mean I can film here? This is America. We can film. I'm not doing anything wrong. Well, I kept filming, and all of a sudden, a gang, I'm with my mom. A gang, we start filming, and there's this car, and I was just filming, interviewing somebody, and this guy jumps over my shoulder and rips my camera. I'm like, we just got jumped. They just took the camera. I'm like, Mom, stop. But she's like, no, give me that camera back. Mom, stay away. And they didn't shoot my mom with any respect. So like, okay, this is a big problem. And then they're like, you better leave right now. So we then left Cedar Riverside. And when I was there in Minnesota, one of my parents saw that I was there, and they said, oh my gosh, Nick, you need to make a video on fraud. I said, what? What do you mean fraud? She's like, I'm a realtor, and we can't even tell the people we're selling our house to that right next to us is adult health care, one of these adult daycares that just popped up inside their house. We can't even tell them, and we can't even tell them if they're a sexual predator or not, because that's against the law in Minnesota. I said, okay, amazing. Let me make this a YouTube video, and let me interview some people. And she lined up all these people for an interview, and they all backed out. I said, well, that's super weird. Why did they all back out? And I realized, oh, they're scared. So from June, I kept trying to gather evidence on the fraud, kept trying to get information, but it was super hard. And then eventually, the man in that video, David, he messaged me, he says, Nick, I've been doing an investigation for 7 years. I've never seen a single child at any of the daycares, and I have all the funding to these daycares. Let's make this video. I call him, and I'm like, sometimes I get a lot of these DMs, and people, it's like, schizo responses. I'm like, what do you mean? That doesn't make sense. I can't go track down my grandma on this side of it. And David was legit, all the information. and we go make this video, and we go to these daycares, we go to the foggy Learing set. So, we go to the Beesley Learning Center, that place had received $1.8 million. And then just a few blocks down, another daycare had received $3.8 million. No kids anywhere to be seen. They got BMWs, Mercedes out there, and like it was just blatant fraud. And I remember getting back to the hotel that night, I'm like, yeah, I think we have a good video. That was good. I didn't really think much of it because at that time I had been posting every single week for 2 years straight. And so I thought, oh, okay, like that's just another video. I'm gonna post this video. And, so hopefully it does. Hopefully it performs well. And little did I know, it became the most viral video on X ever. That video received 4 billion views in 7 days. Across all platforms of people taking that clip, clipping it, putting it all across the world. It turned out that it got 4 billion views in 7 days. And it opened up a can of worms. Now everyone's like, what's going on in my state? We got this fraud here, and we saw it there. And I just talked to Scott Bessing, he's the Secretary of Treasury, and he told me they think every year $250 to $500 billion is wasted in fraud here inside the United States. I said, whoa, that's a lot of money. And one thing that was super cool is with this video, it kind of showed the power that one person can have with the help of a lot of people. So they told me at the Treasury just the other day, they said, so Treasury, if you don't know, Treasury is basically the Bank of America. They receive $6 trillion every year, and they then distribute that to departments that then get handed over to the states. And from that money, we just hope that it gets set into the right spots. And they only track 2% of those payments. Now, they have a whole entire team that's dedicated to learning how to track all the payments. So just from that video alone, and the ripple effect it's able to make, that's literally going to save America billions of dollars. Which is super good. No one likes our money going towards fraudsters. And one thing that sucked about exposing all this fraud is it just so happened to be that a lot of this fraud that was taking place is in these groups that have been used by politicians to commit a lot of this fraud. So then after that, I go to California. If you guys don't want to enroll into a daycare, I can tell you where to enroll into a hospice. Because in California, there's been a 1,000% increase in hospices. So if your grandma needs a hospice, I'm your guy. Just give the medical benefits number, and we can make some money. So they have all these hospices, and these people are driving around in luxury, and they literally have. One guy has to pay back, which is like $250 on my car. And it was just more blatant fraud. And then you have the politicians where this fraud gets exposed. We got Tim Walz to set it down, running for re-election again. But now you have Gavin Newsom, who... So then you have Gavin Newsom. The day after I expose all this fraud, they then post this photo of me. It has 10 cameras on me, and it says Nick Shirley at the daycare with a mic. And they basically try to make me look like a pervert. I said, well, what the heck? That was crazy. Well, you guys are making the wrong person look bad. I just did you guys a big service. And so that video's been out for about a month now. And so for a month now, they've been denying all these fraud allegations. And then just yesterday, Gavin Newsom's like, wait, hold up, let me see if this one works. He's like, let me take credit for the fraud. I'm like, for the fraud being exposed. I'm like, what are you talking about? You're just like, you got me doxxed, now people are threatening me online, all because of you. Like, that's not cool. And so then I respond to him, I'm like, no, you are the fraud. Because he really is. So that was interesting to see. And it's kind of funny, like sometimes I'll be just like literally like, laying in bed, or I'll be driving somewhere and I'll pull over and I'll swipe up. Like the other night, like literally when I saw that text, I was just chilling in bed, and all of a sudden, or that post on X, I'm chilling in bed, and the guy who's running the 5th biggest economy in the world is tweeting at me. Like, oh man, let me see what I'm gonna say. And his post got 3,000 likes, mine got 300,000. So that's a good news. And now I want to talk a little bit about some of the things that helped me a lot when I'm going about doing these things, because I really don't think anything I'm doing is for the right or for the left. I think it's all just common sense. And when I've been going across America doing these videos, I kind of came up with like this way of thinking, and I call it second question thinking. So essentially, if someone were to ask you a question and your response is, let's just take ICE for example. Like, do you support ICE? And someone says no, and they say, why not? And they give you a response, and then your question is to give them a second question. Like, oh, what does the word illegal mean to you? And then they start going off and they can't justify the word illegal. That means that logic actually doesn't stand on anything, because it's just kind of an idea or an ideology that's been pushed on it. And so the idea of thinking with second, you guys think second question so that people can question the second question. And if they can't answer that second question, that means that something's probably wrong. And I remember my favorite book that I've ever read that's been the most helpful book to me is, some of you might have read it, it's from an old author, his name's Dale Carnegie. And the book's called How to Win Friends and Influence People. And in this book, if you haven't read it, especially if you're a young person, if you have not read this book, go on Amazon right now and buy it. It's like $10. It's the best book you'll ever read, and I promise you, things in your life will start to double if you do read this book, because it did to mine. But there's a part in the book, and it talks about, it's called the principle is call attention to people's mistakes indirectly. And it basically goes back to my second question thinking. When you have these people, a lot of people, I rephrase it to call attention to people's thinking mistakes indirectly. Because these people are thinking that ICE can't deport people, or that a boy can be a girl. Like, that doesn't make sense. Like, that totally does not make any sense. And in this book, it talks about how when someone gives you something, you never want to invalidate their claim. You want to take it in, and you just want to justify it, and then just kind of like take them to the truth. And so you're actually able to have these conversations. And so when you're at these colleges, talking to a lot of you guys, and you guys are saying like, oh, it's so liberal here, my professor's so liberal, the kids in my class are so liberal. Well, when you have these, like, you can't not just be friends with someone or not have a conversation with them because they think differently than you. A lot of people are just misguided, and a lot of times people are like, oh, you're far right? I'm like, no, I'm just right, like, this is just the truth. But there's a way that you can go about and do this and talk to these people and have these conversations, because we're not fighting for anything too crazy. Like, we don't want illegals in our country. We don't want boys and women in sports. We don't want people to vote who aren't from our country. We want people to show their ID when they vote. Like, it's super simple stuff. And a lot of it just comes down to the messaging and how we portray ourselves when we have these conversations with people. So, young people, if you want to buy that book, if you can't buy it, I'll buy it for you, because that book literally changed my life. It is so good. So it's called How to Win Friends and Influence People. Promise you. You gotta buy it, and grandmas, buy it for all your grandkids. On my sister's mission, I said, you have to read this book. I promise you, even your mission will go a whole lot better if you read this book. And she can testify of that up there. Her mission went amazing after I sent her that book. But so, like, we're not fighting for anything too crazy. Like, we don't want kids going to Learing centers. We don't want grandmas going to hospices, and then when they go to the doctor, that they can't get the service because they're apparently on hospice. Like, that's the thing with the hospice fraud, is people steal their Medicare beneficiary numbers, and then they make it so they're enrolled in a hospice, and then when they go to the doctor says, no, we can't help you because you're on hospice, like, you're on your deathbed. And they're like, what? I'm not on my deathbed. So, it's super important that we help people think critically and just ask those second questions when we're in our conversations, whether it be with our family, our friends, colleagues, classmates, professors, because nothing we're fighting for is like crazy, you guys. Like, it is common sense. And I promise if I can help make a difference in my country, you guys can too. Because you don't need to make some viral video. You don't need to go out and do something crazy. You don't need to go into the border all by yourself. You don't need to go sneak into some sketchy migrant shelter to show what's going on. You don't need to go to prisons in El Salvador. You can just do stuff here, inside your own community. And that's like the most important thing you can do, especially if you're in school, is to make a difference where your feet are at. And so have those conversations with your friends, and don't be afraid of any of the backlash. Just know that you're standing on good ground, and they're standing on a little bit of ground that's a little bit wobbly, and you just ask them that second question, and boom. It can be that simple. But I want to thank you all so much for being here today. It's an honor to speak with you guys, and I truly do believe that this is the greatest country, and Utah just happens to be one of the greatest states as well. It's pretty chill after you go to all the other states. Utah, I feel like when I come to Utah, I'm like, oh, I didn't even lock my door after going to Louisiana. Like, this is chill. But thank you all so very much, and it's a pleasure to be here, and I hope you don't go to any learning centers, and you just have a great night. Thank you all.
Thank you, Nick, and thank you to all of our guests. That concludes our event tonight. I want to thank you all for coming here, and I hope that you guys can all get home safely. If you're not a part of the College Republicans or any other organization on campus, I ask you to join, and I wish you all a good and happy night. Thank you.